right, guys, we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to make KSA simple for you tonight. For the ones that are struggling, I bet you what you're doing, you're overthinking. Honestly, you're overthinking. KSAs are not as hard as you think they are. Be short, be to the point. And with that being said, being specific. Another thing that you want to throw in here is buzzwords. All right, so let's take this first one. Ability to communicate orally and in writing to facilitate individual and group discussions, set work expectations, coordinate work, and document events such as customer responses, grievances, and accident investigations. That's a lot there. Some of these, they ask for a mouthful. I think they just want an example, but I really have a feeling if you put in everything that they're asking for here, it's going to be a lot, and it's going to take up a lot of your 6,000 characters.
Hey, Kevin, my postmaster, I asked her, I said, so much stuff there. There is no way I'm possibly going to be able to fit all of this stuff and fit it within these characters. Her advice to me was pick one of the topics and one of the questions, and as long as you keep it in your star format, you should be fine.
Okay, guys, and I agree with them. I think you just can't put that much in there. So what I would do is pick out maybe one or two things that you think are the most important. And y'all, I'm going to tell you, in all the units that I go into and I do inspections, the biggest things that I see are this right here. The supervisor does not set expectations. What does that mean by setting expectations? What a supervisor is supposed to do in the morning is go around to every carrier and say, hey, good morning, Mr. Smith. Glad to see you at work today. I hope you had a great weekend. Hey, I see this report, which is going to be the workload status report. You might want to jot that down. The workload status report in DOIS, DOIS, the DOIS program, or preferably the PET tool, performance evaluation tool. You know, people call it PET tool. They're kind of redundant, but the PET, performance evaluation tool, you could find that in DMS. So these are two reports that say the carrier should be leaving the office at this time, and they should be returning to the office at this time. That is setting expectations. Now, listen, caveat here. I'm just cautioning you, don't ever cite solely the PET as your reasoning. You have to use a multitude of factors in your decision making. So you don't always have to go off the numbers that are on the PET if you have other information that might contradict that. Anyway, you go around with the DOIS workload status report or the PET, and you use them as guides to set expectations. So you say, Mr. Smith, hope you had a great weekend. I see you ought to be leaving out by 9:42 today and arriving back at 2:49 p.m. Is everything okay? And they say, hey, not a problem. You might move on to the next person. And you say, Mrs. Jones, are you going to be able to be out of here by 9:36 and be back at 3:24? Okay, and they might say, I don't know, boss. I got 3 full coverages, and they're all thin mail, and they're all out of order. How many minutes do you need? I really don't know. I'm new at this route. Maybe 3 hours? I can't give you 3 hours. Tell you what, I'll give you an extra 45 minutes, and that's because you're new. It just depends on the situation. But anyway, setting expectations, set work expectations is in this. I would highly encourage using the PET tool as a buzzword for this one. And if you could fit some other things in, great, but you don't want to go too long because, like I said, you only got 6,000 characters. Okay, so C360, Customer 360, if you don't know it, I encourage you to learn it. You might want to use that for this one. Grievances. You might want to go that angle if you feel that you have more experience in the grievance process. But anyway, work expectations, C360, and grievances really stand out to me. So let's go down to the ideas that I have. The first one I have is huddle board and stand-up talk, safety talks. A huddle board is nothing more than a dry erase board, a big dry erase board that everybody can see. You might want to give a stand-up talk or a safety talk and use the huddle board. A pivot board is similar to a huddle board for city delivery. Hey, City 1, we're going to have 3 people on this today. City 2, we're going to have 2 people on this one a day. City 16, we're going to have 4 on this one a day. And it shows the employees who's going to be splitting what routes. That's a pivot board. A huddle board is similar. They could both be dry erase boards. Okay. And these huddle boards are great for establishing real communication with your employees. What can you do with the huddle board? Number one, you could put, say your office is not doing too well in a particular category. You put the score up on the huddle board for Monday and you say, guys, I want to see this score go down. Okay, we're way too high. So Tuesday, you might plot the score. Wednesday, plot the score. Hopefully, you'll see a trend throughout the week, that score going down. Huddle boards, you could plot trends. Huddle boards, you could say, hey, if you have any new ideas, let's write it down. And you can write down all the new ideas, all the things that people want to talk about. So huddle boards are great for soliciting that feedback or for showing trends, also for recognition. Your top performers in the unit, I mean, you might want to just showcase that. Huddle boards and stand-up talks, that is you communicating with a group of people. Okay, it's just an idea, however you want to use it. Okay, I've already talked about using the PET tool to set expectations, F2B as city delivery, office departure and return to office. Pivot boards I kind of already covered. The 3996s. 3996 is a controlled item, by the way. A 3996 is when a carrier says, hey, boss, I'm not going to be able to complete this in the time that you told me to. I need an additional 30 minutes. So the 3996, if they fill it out properly, the supervisor, they adjudicate it, either approve or deny. The carrier might be asking 45 extra minutes. The supervisor might say, no, you only got like 15 minutes here. I'll give you 15 minutes. That's what a 3996 does. And sometimes the supervisor might assign 3996s to carriers. Hey, this is your bump, this is your pivot, this is your split. I mean, whatever terminology you want to use. But pivot boards and 3996s are used to communicate work assignments. So I encourage you to get accustomed to what a 3996 is. And that's for city delivery. C360 cases, we talked about that. Communicating with customers and grievances, how to conduct an I&I. On I&Is, if you have a little bit of experience with it, know what just cause is. Was the employee aware of a rule? Was that rule reasonable? And is that rule applied evenly across the board? But these are ideas to how you communicate in orally or in writing. All right, so now that we talked about these ideas, let's talk about the STAR format: situation, task, action, and result. And y'all, the STAR format is not required, but it is highly encouraged because a lot of people on the review committee, they understand the STAR format. What I like to do on my very first KSA, I like to do this. I like to spell it out for them. The situation in my office was this. So I specifically use situation because I want them to zero in on that. My task is to whatever, right? And so I use task. So I got situation, task. The action that I took, it just really illustrates to that review person that you are using the STAR format. As a result of my actions, I was able to, and guys, you want to try to quantify your results if all possible, such as I've reduced cost by 10%. I improved performance by 15%. Whatever, you want to try to quantify it. But when you first start your KSAs, I don't want you to focus on that because quantifying is sometimes difficult when you don't know how to interpret reports. But if you know that you improve performance, you can say, I greatly improved performance. It's not the best one to use. So you want to be able to say something like this right here: non-delivery indicator, NDI. This is when a carrier does not take their scanner to a delivery point. What you want to say is this right here: you analyze a triangulation report specifically. You noted that the NDI was 20%. I provided a stand-up talk to all the carriers to ensure they took their scanner to every delivery point, that they changed their scanner to the correct route when pivoting, and ensured that they had the latest software when they entered their personal information into the scanner. Okay, those are the actions that you took. NDI was at 20%. I've reduced it down to 4.12%. If you know how to read that triangulation report and you can get a starting point on your NDI, and if you could show that you've reduced it, okay, that's quantifiable. That is a very good one if you could put that in.
Kevin, where do you write these KSAs? Is it the summary at the end of your application?
That's a very good question. Okay, inside eCareer, you're going to fill out things like your previous jobs. You might even put your education in there. These KSAs, they go in what's called the Summary of Accomplishments tab. Write that down. That's where your KSAs go. You have 6,000 characters. The Summary of Accomplishments. Some people want to attach their KSAs. Do not do that. The attachment part is only used if the job announcement specifically asks for it. Make sure you put your KSAs in the Summary of Accomplishments. Now, some people, they think, oh my God, I went over 6,000 characters. I'm at 8,000 characters. I'll just upload it into the files. Don't do that. Put it in the Summary of Accomplishments and you keep it at 6,000 characters. Otherwise, it looks like failure to follow instructions. Very good question. I'm really glad you asked that. Thank you. Does anybody have any other questions?
I do, Terry. I noticed that when I did do my KSAs inside the summary thing, like it let me do the whole thing and then like it cut it off. I mean, this might be a dumb question, but is there a simple way for me to be able to count my characters?
Man, these are good questions. Yes. Now, can y'all see my Google Forms file that I still have up?
Yes.
I'm going to go to Tools. I got my cursor going around Tools. I'm going to click on Tools, and there's a word count right here. And you click on word count, and you make sure you want to see the characters. Like right now, you see I'm well over at 10,972. Well, this isn't a KSA packet. But that's what you want to look for, are those characters right there. Very good question. Now, this is Google Docs. Now, Microsoft Word, which is very similar to Google Docs, has a similar function. I believe it's under Tools also, and it might be called Word Count. I can't remember. Just play around with it. Get it down to 6,000 characters. Copy and paste it into the Summary of Accomplishments. Now, once you have it in there, you want to go back and proofread your final copy. Sometimes your characters go a little crazy, and you might find a weird character in there. You need to go back in and edit that. Okay, so it's very important that you do a spell check in Google Docs or Microsoft Word, but you also proofread your final copy inside the Summary of Accomplishments or your candidate profile. Very good question. Any other question?
Yes, Kevin. I've been told that it's possible to hit 2 of the KSAs in one paragraph, I guess.
Yes.
You just have to notate that you're covering those 2.
You can. Now, on some KSAs, they're noted with a letter. Some KSAs are noted with a number. If your KSAs are noted with a letter, I encourage you to use a letter because that makes it easier for the review committee. You could put an A and a C together. You could do A, comma, C. Okay, and this covers both of those KSAs. Now, me personally, this is just my opinion. I would rather keep them separate. Keep it very simple. Some people get tired of reading these things and their brain turns mush after reading so much. And the whole point is you want to make it simple. However, if you do want to do that, I have heard also that that is appropriate. My opinion is try to keep them simple. Very good question. Now that we covered the STAR format, I want to talk about, you know how I said the STAR format is not actually required, it's just highly encouraged. Sometimes your situation and task kind of blend together. If they do, don't worry about it. Like, I like to do that very first KSA by spelling out, here's the situation. This was my task. This was my action. As a result, I did this. I like to spell it out so they know that we're in the STAR format. After that, you don't have to use situation, task, action, result specifically in there. I mean, you can if you want to, if you really want to drive that home that you're using the star format. But sometimes what you run into is, well, you're trying to save on the characters because you only got 6,000. And so you might not want to do all that lead in stuff to set up that you know what the star format is. Really, you could do this right here. You could do problem, action, and result. Call it the PAR format. This is the problem. This is the action. This is the result. That's appropriate. Okay, but I would encourage you on that very first one, actually spell out STAR. But sometimes your situation and task kind of blend together. If you present it as a problem, okay, so just kind of keep that in mind. If you're uncomfortable, if you're not sure, just continue with the star format. You'll be totally fine. But if you're just having a writer's block one day and you just can't get it down, then if you kind of fit that PAR format, problem, action, result, I think you'll be just fine. So with that being said, let's move on through the ideas. So hopefully you guys understand the STAR format. And here's one that I did for number one. Situation: effective communication is vital to operational excellence. Okay, operational excellence is a buzzword that the post office likes. Task: my task is to ensure instructions are clearly understood using various modes of communication. And we go to action. Sometimes you might want to use one action. Sometimes you might need, several. I've created PowerPoint presentations to higher level management illustrating carriers with stationary events. That is a hot item, stationary events. I've also used these presentations when conducting investigatory interviews to help ascertain the carrier's response. I've conducted numerous service safety talks using huddle boards to drive performance, such as lowering NDI, non-delivery indicator, office and street variance. That's a big one. By the way, that's found on the F2C report. F2C report, you can find that in the radar page. And stationary events again. I routinely connect my computer. Supervisors have a computer. They can connect an HDMI cable to it. And these bigger offices, they have a big screen TV. They can roll around the room. So I routinely connect my computer to our 52-inch television so carriers can visualize reports such as DMS breadcrumbs, buzzword, and RIMS, red lines to nowhere. You see the point there. I use several things under the actions. I could eliminate a couple of those. I could stick with one. But if I wanted to throw in a bunch of buzzwords, this is a great place to really throw those buzzwords in, the action part. Okay, so result. As a result of engaging with multiple styles of oral and written communication, employees clearly comprehend instructions leading to optimal performance. Now, you notice I didn't quantify anything there. Okay, but if I would have focused on NDI instead of everything else that I put in here, I might have said something like, as a result, our office went from a 20.22% NDI down to a 4.9% in a matter of 1 week. That would have been a very impressive NDI if you chose to zero in on that. Number two, knowledge of delivery operations, policies and procedures, including route evaluations, delivery services, mail dispatch and delivery, sufficient to explain to others and answer questions about the operation. This brings up a good point. What if you put in for a job of a supervisor of customer service and the whole office was nothing but city delivery? It's good to know a little bit about everything. But if it's crunch time and it's all about city delivery, you want to know about city delivery. You might not want to focus on rural delivery too much. If you investigate an office and you find out that it's all rural delivery, their clerks are great. They all get along. There's no problems with the clerks. You kind of hear that through the grapevine. Then I need to know a little bit about clerks. I don't need to know much about city. I might want to know the basics, but I really need to focus on rural because this is a rural office with 40 routes. When you apply for a job, you really want to take into account You want to customize your KSAs to that job. Now, if you're just putting in for everything like a shotgun blast, you might want to write your KSAs to reflect it all. But if you're really putting in for a job that's like, hey, this is a town that you grew up in and this is where you want to be, then you might want to tailor it towards that specific job. That's just a decision that you're going to have to make. But here are some ideas. On the city side, we have DOAS, RMSS, the EL 901. Okay, that's your city delivery contract, collective bargaining agreement. EL 902, that is your rural carrier collective bargaining agreement. The M41, that is your city delivery, that's their Bible, right? Our PO 603 for the rural carriers, that's their Bible. 1838Cs, 3999s. Okay, those are city delivery forms. Okay, 1838C is a route evaluation inside the office. A 3999 is a route evaluation on the street. The mini mail survey, that was for rural delivery. DPM, that's delivery point manager. LTM was line of travel manager. Those are rural delivery. 4003, edit books for rural and city. DCV, delivery conditions visualization. Are we leaving mail in the office? Y'all, DCV is a huge thing. I would definitely throw that as a buzzword. And mail rotation. Mail rotation. If you have a route that for some reason, say during COVID was a very good reason. A lot of people came up sick in the office. We didn't have enough bodies to carry the mail. Route 1 didn't go out today. Route 1 better go out tomorrow. And if we have to delay something, it better not be Route 1. It better be another route. We want to rotate that mail. So all of these are buzzwords. You want to pick something that you know something about. This isn't an all-inclusive list. You might have something else that you're an expert at. But it talks about knowledge of delivery operations, policies and procedures, including route evaluations. Route evaluations to me is you better know something. If it's rural delivery, you better know something about delivery point manager, LTM, RREC scanning. We got 6 required scans. That's on the rural side. Now, if it's on the city side, you better know 1838Cs. You better know 3999s. These are just ideas to get you going. The edit book training. If you go into Hero and type in DLOP, Delta Lima Oscar Papa, you should have some training that comes up that gives you edit book training. If it doesn't come up, ask your supervisor to search for it. You might be restricted from it. It's your level or whatever. But your supervisor, ask them, hey, I want to be an edit book champion. I want to know everything about edit books, and I want to be able to assist you to get our edit book straight. That is a great foot in the door to show that you're interested in something. To number 3, I was starting to write a KSA for this one, but I think I ended up not liking it. But I'll go ahead and read it anyway. Situation: ensuring accurate and timely delivery is essential to maintaining the trust of our customers. My task is to plan ahead using historical trends to ensure adequate staffing matches the workload. Using local knowledge of carrier demonstrated ability, along with my skills of influence and motivation, and then I stopped. So anyway, I think that's why I got busy on that one. But anyway, you kind of get the point of where I'm going. So let's go ahead and move on to number 3. The rest of these, I don't think I wrote anything for, but I'm just here to give you ideas on what you can write. So number 3, knowledge of retail window operations, policies, and procedures, including window services, retail supplies and equipment, sufficient to explain to others and answer questions about the operation. So basically, can you work the window? Policies and procedures, the F101, 247 is an overage, the 647 is a shortage. If you don't know the answer to something, 2 things that can save you is, I don't really know the answer. However, I know where to find it. And for this example, we would say the F101. Now, if I couldn't find it in the F101, I know to call the help desk. All right, ideas. Aegis for a clerk. When a customer comes through the lobby, a clerk has a format that they go through as her. Anyway, so what is Aegis? Apologize. I'm sorry for the wait, sir, even if it was a 30-second wait. Good morning. That's the greet. Inquire. How can I help you? Suggest. Would you like to try our priority product? Once the transaction is completed, thank them. Thank you so much for coming in today. It's really a pleasure serving you. And what they do is circle the receipt and say, hey, please take our survey and let us know what you think. That's AGIST. SSRD. I think it stands for Sales, Service, Retail, Diagnostic. But the big thing with SSRD is wait time in line, lag time. SSRD is a report that tells you a clerk's performance. And a big thing is lag time. Some clerks don't know they need to suspend the transaction. Another thing about clerks, they want to throw 270 packages an hour. Some packages are big, some packages are little. You can throw the little ones easy. These are things that you want to know. A window shop, they look for several things. Wait time in line. If it's more than 5 minutes, that's a ding. So how do you mitigate when you have a long line of customers? Well, what some people do is they put a doorbell for the clerk, can push a little button, and then at the supervisor's desk, there's a doorbell. Okay, the supervisor can stop what he's doing, come up and assist the clerks to kind of drive down that wait time in line. Some people put cameras up so they can see the retail lobby. Whatever you got to do, you want to reduce that 5-minute wait because these shoppers, they're anonymous people that I believe the Postal Service contracts. They come in and they're judging you. Okay, am I going to stand in line more than 5 minutes? And if so, you get dinged pretty hard. Another thing they're looking for, there's a hazmat question. Does this package have any hazardous materials? If the clerk is choosing that for them, that's not right. The customer should be choosing the hazmat question. So those are some good buzzwords you could throw in. Any questions on number 3? Let me go to number 4. Knowledge of provisions of local and national bargaining unit agreements related to retail and delivery operations, including job bidding, overtime and grievance arbitration, sufficient to recognize and reinforce actions that facilitate compliance. So the big things that you want to know out of any contract, I would say Article 8, Article 15, Article 16. One thing that you're going to notice, whether it's rural, city delivery, clerk, is the articles are going to align to be similar with each other. For instance, Article 16 is about progressive discipline. Contracts between crafts are going to have different variation, but the premise is all the same. All right, any other questions on number 4? Okay, number 5, the ability to investigate, troubleshoot, and respond to customer inquiries related to retail and delivery products and services. To me, this sounds like 360 cases. So ideas, 360 cases, customer phone calls and window visits. Where's my package? The WIMP, if you look at the triangulation report. So the big thing I would use for this one is customer 360 cases. Get familiar with that program. Just know it like the back of your hand. So if you haven't dealt with C360, then talk about how you dealt with the customer over the phone or how you dealt with the customer out on the route. Sometimes you could respond to a lot of the questions as, have you ever heard of informed delivery? That could be the action that you took. Provided the customer with information on how to sign up for informed delivery because maybe, they were missing mail for a couple of days and maybe they just actually didn't get mail. But when you have informed delivery, even though it's not perfect, it will tell you something. So let's move on to number 6. Knowledge of postal policies and procedures related to scheduling, leave usage, and time and attendance sufficient to recognize and reinforce actions to facilitate compliance. The ideas here, I have clerks using OVS, city using DOAs, rural using the scheduler, tax or ERMS. 3972 attendance reviews is the big one, I think. A 3971 is a leave slip. A 3972, if you go into tax or ERMS, you can print out like a calendar that says this carrier was AWOL this many times. It's like a calendar. It says AWOL on the date that they were AWOL, or that maybe it was LWOP, or maybe it was annual leave, maybe it was sick leave. The 3972 attendance reviews, you want to know that. And y'all, if you have a pen, write this down. How to get to the CRDO resource library. From the blue homepage, I'm going to give you the path real fast, and this is good for more than just what I'm telling you here. But if you go to the blue homepage, go to the lower right-hand corner, and you want to look for retail and delivery operations. You click on that link, and it's going to bring up a bunch of links. The next link you want to click on is delivery operations. When you click on delivery operations, it's going to bring you to a page, and you're going to see the delivery and proficiency capabilities. I believe it's something similar to that. I don't know if I got that phrase exactly right, but click on delivery and capability proficiency, and you click on that link. It's going to bring you to a page. One of the first things you're going to see is what's called the resource library. Now, let me tell you what's great about the resource library. There's three things that you're going to love. One, they're going to have stand-up talk. Just stand-up talks about a variety of things. You can click on that and browse through all their stand-up talks. That's good information. The other thing that you can click on, other than stand-up talks, is standard work instructions. We have standard work instructions for everything. Learning grows. Learning grows. You want to click on the Learn and Grow recordings, and these are videos of things that are relevant to your job. So that's the resource libraries, but there's also some other resources. Bluetooth, you got to be from a postal computer. On the resource library, you got to be from a postal computer also. And also Informed Visibility. Informed Visibility, you get there from the homepage. They have videos too. There's one that you can do from your computer at your home, and that's Hero. I encourage you guys to search for any training that you can find on Hero. Anyway, I wanted to give a plug for that. 3972 attendance reviews. Make sure you know how to do an attendance review. Any questions so far before we move on? Number 7, skill using computers sufficient to access data and generate reports. You want to know Microsoft Excel, and especially pivot tables. Now in Hero, if you type in pivot table, it will take you to some training on pivot tables. Now, you might watch this training and you might feel like you're a little lost. Go to Excel, make your own table of whatever. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and come up with whatever fictitious data you want and play around with it using a pivot table. Eventually, you'll figure it out. Maybe go to not Bluetooth. You can't go to Bluetooth, but go to YouTube and type in pivot table. And maybe you'll find something that's a little easier for you to understand. But for number 7, you definitely want to use Microsoft Excel. You definitely want to say pivot tables. You can say things like Power BI. You can say things like all these programs that you find in the field operations support page under delivery operations. But if any of you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to, just give me a call and I'll spend some time with you. Number 8, ability to interpret data reports and perform basic math computations sufficient to understand and explain how reports relate to day-to-day operations. That should be percent to standard, office variant, street variance, etc. If you wanted a good report to illustrate this that has the most impact, you want to use the F2C report. I'll give you the path real quick. From the blue homepage, go to the lower right-hand corner of the blue homepage, retail and delivery operations, then click on delivery operations, and once you click on that, go to field operations support, and from there, you want to go to radar. There's 3 big tabs in the center. The first one is radar. The second one is metric checklist. And by the way, metric checklist, I'm not going to go over it with you tonight, but that would be a very good study guide. And the third one you're going to see is Power BI. That's just a report you got to play around with. You got to be from a postal computer. But we're going to focus on radar. Radar has a ton of reports. What you want to do on radar is go to the F2C report and look for the F2C roadmap. The F2C roadmap will give you a lot of data. And it talks about things like office variants or street variants. These are things that you want to become familiar with. It sounds a little overwhelming right now, but man, once you start to dig into it, it's not that complicated. All right, we're going to move on. We got number 9 here. Ability to maintain composure, de-escalate potentially contentious situations, and foster positive work relationships in the midst of stressful conditions, disagreements, and interpersonal conflicts. You know, this has grievance procedure stuff written all over it. I don't have to go over too much with this. Conflict resolution, know your body language, I versus you statements, just anything psychology or leadership or motivation. You got to remember when you deal with difficult employees sometimes, you have got to go to a different frame of mind. Don't go to that personal level. Go to the level where you're trying to make things better. Just think of a situation or a time where you de-escalated a situation and you had a positive outcome. Number 10, ability to adhere to applicable safety and health policies, practices, and recognize potential safety issues sufficient to identify and reinforce actions to mitigate risk. You know what? To me, that is a driver observation or a workplace practice observation. I would say driver observation because, you know, a lot of our accidents are on the street. And so a 4584, PS Form 4584 is a driver observation. You might want to use that PS Form 4584 and talk about how you conducted driver observations and provided stand-up talks in DMS, for instance. DMS has excessive reverse. You could talk about how you put a piece of yellow tape across the workroom floor that was 50 feet to demonstrate this is actual 50 feet. If you go over 5 miles an hour and you're in reverse for 50 feet, it's going to trigger an excessive reverse. And so you can reduce people coming up on a report of excessive reverse simply because they're aware of it. Now, sometimes there are situations where rural carriers, they have to reverse. Okay, that's fine. But our goal is to reduce it when we can. Maybe do a 3-point turn. Reducing excessive reverses and doing driver observations. PS Form 4584s are essential to helping us achieve our safety goals. All right, in the rest of this document, guys, it is the old qualification requirements. I just put the new on top. But this is a Google Doc. It's posted inside the lead group on Facebook. And if you just look for this link inside the Facebook group, you can get to this documentation. Does anybody have any questions?
I have a question, Kevin.
Go ahead.
Okay, you've been excellent, and I appreciate the class. But now, where did you say we could find this on Facebook if we want to go back and review again?
I'll post it in the group right after this meeting, just to make sure you guys, have reference to it.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, no problem. Any other questions? All right, ladies and gentlemen, it really does say something about your character that you stuck it out for an hour and a half tonight. It really does. It says that you're driven. It says that you want to make a difference in the post office. You are the people that we want. Thank you all for attending tonight. If I can help you in any way, please reach out to me. I want to see you guys succeed. With that being said, thank you guys. I hope you all have a good night.
Have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kevin. We appreciate your information.
Have a good night.